We hear some of the most interesting stories when sewing friends tell about their early days of learning to sew and to use a sewing machine. Many shared tales of having one needle which lasted for years before it broke. Oh, me. Today you'll become a connoisseur of sewing machine needles as we get right to the point of needle choices. And I might add, they should be changed frequently. We have lots on our sewing plate today. The first course is ready. Welcome to my sewing room. I'm so pleased to have as my guest today my dear friend Steve Butler. Steve is a consultant for Schmetz Needles. Steve, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much. It's always good to be in Martha's sewing room.
Thank you, and tell us the most exciting news about needles.
Well, you know, last time we had a chance to talk, we discussed all the different types of needles, and we discussed when was the best time to use each particular type. But what we didn't have time to discuss was the needle sizes. And when it comes to getting that perfect stitch and those beautiful seams, we need to make sure that we're using the right size needle as well as the right type of needle. When I travel around the country and I talk to different sewers, I found that there's a lot of confusion regarding needle sizes. Most people still don't know what the needle numbers mean, and they don't know what the impact is on their sewing. Several years ago, back in the early 50s, the needle sizes were so complicated that very few people could understand it. At that time, one of the major European needle manufacturers took the initiative to simplify this for us. And the way he did that was to combine the major European size designation system with the major American size designation system. And that's what we see today. When you go to the store and you buy a packet of needles, you'll see numbers like 7511, 8012, 9014. And these are those numbers. In fact, some people still refer to the first number as the European number and the second number as the American number. The first number in actuality is the number metric, and it's just a measure of the thickness of the needle shaft in millimeters and multiplied by 100. The reason we multiply it by 100 is to get rid of a reference to the decimal. So when you go to the store and you buy a size 80 needle, you're really buying a needle that's 0.8 millimeters thick.
Well, I did not know that, Steve.
Well, then we take that and we combine
that
with the Schmetz number, and the Schmetz number is not a size measurement, but it's a reference to a size measurement. And so we correlate the size 75 with the Singer 11. We correlate the 80 with the 12, 90, 14, and so on up, or down into the smaller needles that you would probably use in your heirloom work.
Oh yes, we use 70s, 60s, 80s, I mean, no bigger than 70 actually. And then on the twin needles and the wing needles, we always use the smallest sizes available. And that's kind of our rule. Skinny is the rule.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And we're going to talk in a minute exactly why that's so important. But what's important to realize is that as the needle gets thicker or thinner, the eye gets larger or smaller.
Okay.
Now we know the tip is designed to work with the fabric, but the eye is designed to work with our thread. If the eye is too small, when the thread ratchets back and forth in the stitch forming process, it causes a lot of friction, will actually fray or maybe even break that thread for us. If we're using a stretchy thread like a rayon or a filament polyester, we can actually cause puckering in our fabric when we're done with our sewing process. If we use a needle where the eye is too big, then the needle doesn't control the thread enough to form the sewing loop, and we start getting skip stitches. So that's why you use the smaller needles in your heirloom work, because it controls that thread and we don't get
finer thread that we use.
Exactly right. And another problem you have with the thicker needle and fine fabric is that it can actually damage your fabric. So that's why you always want to use the smallest needle that you can possibly use. So that begs the question, how do I pick?
How do you pick that needle?
Exactly.
Okay.
What size
how
needle
do you pick that
Well,
needle?
There's several ways, but the first thing I would recommend is what I call my rule of thumb. And that's basically for a 40 weight thread, which most people use in sewing through all different disciplines, works great with the size 80-12. So if you can just remember 40 weight thread equals an 80-12 needle, then we know that if we're going to heavier threads like a 30 weight or a 20 weight, we need to increase the size of our needle. When we go to finer threads like a 50 or the 60s or 80s that you use in heirloom, we want to go to a much smaller needle.
Like a 60 or a 70 needle.
Exactly.
But you know, 80, is that kind of the universal needle?
It is.
If you don't know what to do, use an 80.
That's right, and that's kind of a conservative thing that you can use for a lot of different threads. But again, if you go into a really heavy threads or really light threads, then you need to make some kind of adjustment. Another recommendation I have for you is that a lot of the manufacturers now are recommending needle sizes and types, and when you buy a spool of thread, they'll actually have it printed right on the label for you, and that's a good starting point.
Well, I did not know that. Just to have the needle size for that particular thread.
That's right. So if you check some of the labels now, they'll tell you a size, and sometimes they'll even tell you a type of needle that you can use. If you have actually no idea what size needle to use, you can get the type of thread that you're going to use, cut a section of it off, and actually thread it through your needle. And then hold it taut, and then lower one end about 45 degrees, and if the needle slides down easily, then that needle is large enough to fit that thread, and you should have no problems.
What a fascinating idea.
Yeah.
If it slides down nicely, then
it's large enough.
Then it's large enough.
But if it gets caught, then you need to go to a larger size needle to accommodate that particular thread.
And I love the idea there's so many needles for so many of the specialty threads that we use now. But you know, Steve, those double needles, we use either 1.6 or 2.0 for heirloom sewing. Anything wider, for our pin tucks, anything wider smushes it up too much. And our wing needle sewing, we use the smallest wing needle available. Usually we use a 100 wing needle.
Yeah, that's what you have to
or
do.
Or a 90 regular needle for the wing needle entredot stitches.
Sure.
It's critical that you don't use a needle too big or that you don't use a needle too small.
Well, the absolute key in selecting the size of the needle is the first thing you want to do is use the smallest needle that you can.
Okay.
And then you select the point for the type of fabric or the application that you're going to be using. And then you select the size of the needle that will accommodate your thread. And if you do that, you're going to be able to achieve those perfect stitches that you want.
Steve, thank you so very much.
You're
it's
very
been
welcome.
A pure joy to have you here with me today. And now we have some designer techniques to share with you. I'm so happy to have as my guest today my dear friend and business colleague, Kathy Barnard. Kathy is editor of So Beautiful magazine. Kathy, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Martha. I'm so happy to be here.
Beautiful dress. Go ahead and
Look
tell me
at that.
about
I just love this dreamy dress. Well, today we're going to be talking about slotted seams, which is a couture technique that in the past has been a little bit difficult to do and required a lot of precision on the sewer. But with new products like wash away thread, this has become very easy. On this gown, Sue Pennington Stewart made this beautiful gown using as the insert a see-through silk organza, and underneath the color pops with the colored slip that she puts underneath. So you could actually use a pink slip and have more of a pink hue coming through on the slotted seams, and she's decorated it with a dotted machine decorative stitch. What I love about this one is she's used silk satin ribbon as the insert, and she's used hand French knots to embellish each side of the slotted seam. And on this one, she's picked up some of the skirt fabric, which is a green silk dupioni, and this is a brown velvet, and this wonderful sparkle that she adds to both sides of her slotted seam with little tiny beads. And if you notice, there's no real top stitching. That's just caught with hand-stitched little beads on both sides. So let me go to the boards and show you exactly how to do this. It's very easy, but first I'm going to show you how to prepare your pattern for it. When you want to add a slotted seam to any pattern, on this particular basic bodice pattern, I've just drawn a straight line where I want to add a slotted seam, and I want a slotted seam on the center front fold. To do this, I've determined that I want to use a 1/2 inch seam allowance, which is from this blue line to the edge. That means I had to add an additional 3/8 inch to the edges, the cut edges of this pattern, and to the center front, because I'm going to be folding this back, and this little section here, the 1/8 inch here and the 1/8 inch here, is going to make a 1/4 inch open slotted seam. Now, you can also make a closed slotted seam, and in that case you would just add the whole 1/2 inch seam allowance. And this is a wonderful technique, because when you move and bend with the garment, that little peak that just peeks through as you move in the garment. You can also make a curved slotted seam, and you would use a bias strip as your insert piece. First thing you're going to do is imagine this as our bodice, and we've cut it right down the middle. We're going to fold back our 1/2 inch seam allowance and press. Then you're going to place that right side up on your slotted seam insert. We would draw a line with a blue wash-away marker, which 1/2 inch from this edge and 1/2 inch from this edge, which you can see creates that 1/4 inch opening in the center. You pin that on, lining the fold edge up to the line on both sides. I like to use water-soluble glue too, because that makes an easy join right there and keeps it firm when you're stitching. The next step is you want to set your machine up with water-soluble wash-away thread. And you're going to stitch this seam 1/2 inch from the edge all the way down on this side and all the way down on this side. Then you're going to switch back to regular thread and you're going to finish. You can serge finish or zigzag finish each of these edges, but don't trim this seam because you'll need that for support when you do your top stitching. So you see that makes a really nice opening here, and it's firmly caught with our water-soluble basting thread. All right, the next thing you want to do is secure these two sides with a top stitch 1/4 inch from the fold edge. Again, Sue used beads on one side and French knots, but you can also use decorative stitching or machine embroidery. The next thing you do is you can use a steam iron to open up and dissolve that thread, and it cleanly opens that up for you. When you wash this, all of the marking and all of the thread will disappear and you've got your open slotted seam, and it's just that easy.
Well, Kathy, that is a beautiful technique and so much fun to use those different ribbons and fabrics. And,
oh, it's great. It adds so much
organza
color and
underneath
texture
it.
to a garment.
And it's so much fun just to do.
Just to do, yeah.
And next I have some beautiful hand embroidery to share with you. I'm so happy to have as my guest today my very dear friend Beverley Sheldrick from New Zealand. Beverley is an internationally recognized author and teacher. Beverley, welcome back to the show.
Oh, thank you, Martha. It's just wonderful to be here as always. But especially today because we are showing the fluffy rose, which is one of the roses. As you can see, it's here on the bonnet and of course it's very prominent on the gown. But such a special gown for a very special birthday for you. So it's a great pleasure. Now, viewers, this is not a difficult rose, but it does take a little careful attention. We'll just put the bonnet there and we'll go to my board here. Now you can see that I have started with just a single French knot done in silk ribbon. I have then put another 2 with it, and I want you to notice that they're cuddling each other uptight. We don't want them sort of looking as though they've had a fight. Now here you will see I've got my first layer of these little fluffy bits going around here. It's actually a little pleat, but it's not pre-gathered. So here you'll see I've gone round once there, here I've gone round a second time. And of course, depending on the size of rose you want, you can go on and on. So here we have just a simple one here, and I've just popped a few little ribbon stitch leaves beside it. So here we are. We have over here just that one, first of all, that one wrap for our French knot. Pull it so it's tight like this and put in those other 2, and again just one wrap, a true French knot, and then the third one will cuddle up to it as well. Now you can see here that I've already got my 3 French knots, and you will see that I've changed colour. I've come up right beside the French knots. You will also see that I have taken a needle which has some machine thread in it, and I've brought that up in exactly the same position, and I've taken a little pleat and I'm going to pull it through like that. And I've just done that in advance to make it easier for you to see it. Now it is important that you keep the silk ribbon lying in front of you like that, so that when you pull it, it's going the direction that you want, and you're going to take just a little pleat like that, pick it up with your needle, bring it down and over, and take it through like that. And then you will turn the hoop once more, and then keep on going like this, just keeping it in front of you and taking that little pleat all the time. So it's just picking it up like that and coming round and back like that. When you bring the needle back, it comes right back to where you started, and it goes through like that. Now you're going to continue going on round until you get to the position where you've gone round the full time. And now you're going to put a second layer. If I want just a little one, which is for, say, baby's clothes or something like that, I would only go round the once. But I want this to be a little bigger. So here I am, once more with my needle, coming up. And the needle has come up actually underneath here, like that. So I'm just going to take that little pleat like this, pick it up, and when the needle goes back down in again, it's going in underneath there like that. So when I come back up again, I'm going to come round again like this, and I'm moving forward all the time. I'm moving forward approximately 1/16 of an inch. When I take that little pleat, I'm going forward approximately 1/8 of an inch, and then you can see picking it up, bringing it back to there like that, and going back to the back at the same spot. So coming up like that. Now I'm going to keep on going like that until once more I get round to where I started here, which will give me, as you can see here, a second layer, and then I'll just take that through to the back. Stitches, as we said, the leaves are just that simple little ribbon stitch with the finger like that, pull it through, and there's your point, just like that.
Oh, Beverly, that is such a beautiful flower. And I thank you so much for this beautiful dress and the beautiful bonnet and shoes. And that's just the best birthday present ever. Thank you so much, Beverly.
You're welcome.
And now I have a home decorating idea to share with you. I'm so happy to have as my guest today, Erin Hardin. Erin is a designer from Martha Pulling Company. Erin, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Martha. It's so great to be here. Today I'm going to go over this little flower that I have on this little bag, and we also have it on this dress over by you, so you can incorporate it into clothing. There's really lots of different projects that you could put this on. But really, the bag is what I'm going to concentrate on, and kind of what this bag illustrates is just the different ways that you can use fabric to decorate your projects. A lot of times we feel like we have to just go out, buy all these trims and make all these big purchases, but really a lot of the times you can just use fabrics that you have. We've done this little basket weave, and then we've got some quilting at the bottom. But today I really want to focus on this flower here. So let's get started.
That is so cute.
Thank you. Well, first, all I have got is my little template. It's got the 5 petals of the flower because, as you'll notice, they're in this kind of star pattern. So we need 5 petals. They're equally sized. And then I've got 2 pieces of the fabric here, and these are placed wrong sides together, or right sides together, rather. The wrong side is face up. And I'm just going to trace my template on top with the blue washout marker. Then I'm just going to stitch directly over that line. I've got my stitches already on this sample, and I've stitched directly over the line, so that way it's easy guiding. You don't have to worry about seam allowances quite yet. And then here I've just trimmed very close. This is less than an eighth. It's probably in between a 1/16 of an inch and an eighth of an inch. I've just trimmed very close to the stitching, and then at the points you'll notice that I've stitched to but not through the points, because you don't want to trim over the stitching, but you want to get as close as possible, so when you turn it to the right side you've got a nice smooth point there. And that's what we have here. I've turned this one around so that the right side is up. I've got my smooth edge, and then all I've done is with a lengthened machine stitch, I've done a gathering stitch right here. And so then you're going to come through, pull the bobbin thread, and this is when the flower starts to take shape. And you have to be kind of gentle with it, because I only have one gathering stitch because this is such a small space here. So I'm just pulling, and you'll notice that the petals will start to sort of curve. They're going to start to form their shape on you. So you'll just continue the length of your piece, just gathering. And then you're going to end up with a circular shape, and I've just tacked this in place by hand. And then all you got to do is select what you want to put as your center. In the little dress that we have, I used a button. So you can pick decorative buttons. You could even do a cluster of beads, a cluster of pom-poms. But my favorite is what we've used in the purse, where I've just taken a contrasting fabric and I've done a fabric colored button using this little button covering tool. So, and that's all there is to it.
Well, that is absolutely adorable and so beloved by little girls or by big girls too. And that's a fun project for home decorating, for that cute little beach bag you have. And this little dress is completely adorable, and you just put the little happy flowers on that. Erin, this is absolutely adorable idea. And thank you so very much.
Thank you.
And now I'd like to share a piece from my vintage collection with you. I absolutely love baby day gowns, and this one is oh so sweet and would be very, very easy to reproduce today. The little square yoke has sort of a little tab. It's kind of a little flap actually that comes here, and then there's just a little bit of lace insertion in the middle. Very sweet and simple sleeves with a little bit of beading and 3 little tucks, and then lace on down the skirt, which is perfectly plain, except for this beautiful little ruffle on the bottom, which has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tucks, which has entredeaux and lace. Now, as you know, so many of these adorable, wonderful, treasured baby day gowns had drawstrings in the neck, and that's very practical because that means that you could make this gown to fit any size baby. And also, it's just very easy to draw it up that way. But you know, babies' necks do vary a lot. This has sets of 3 tucks, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then 3 little buttons. And of course, the beautiful entredeaux gathers the fabric on the back. I have a couple of beautiful ideas, sewing from the heart, for you today. The first was sent to me by Audrey Holland. Audrey writes, the Blue Star Mothers of Broken Arrow, Oklahoma needed 2,400 Christmas stockings to put in the holiday boxes they are sending to our troops this year. Debbie Hendricks of Tulsa committed to doing whatever she could do to help achieve this goal. Debbie invited a few friends to join her in making a difference in the life of a soldier. The response was overwhelming from the sewing community. People donated fabric, organized sewing parties, and committed time to cut, sew, and deliver the stockings to Debbie's drop-off point. Debbie personally cut over 1,000 stockings and delivered more than 2,400 to the Blue Star Mothers. Oh, Debbie, thank you so much, and all of you wonderful Oklahomans who helped make that Christmas a little bit happier for a soldier. I have another letter from Dee Briggs in New Mexico. My friend in Illinois, Patricia Peterson, makes pieced quilts, knitted hats, and scarves for the girls at the Arrowhead Ranch. She also knits hats for the Iowa Mentor Group. With her mission group at church, she does bandages and midwife kits for Africa. She is a busy lady. Thanks for recognizing her. That was Patricia Peterson in Illinois. Thank you so much, ladies, for sharing and for all of your volunteer work that you are doing with your sewing machine. Thank you for joining me. Won't you come back next time?